Today, we become legends.
The Season of Hope 10.3 patch has brought an entirely new UI for Smite, with not only a completely overhauled look, but a ton of new features over the previous UI as well. Is it good? Is it an abomination? Let's talk. So first up, what did you guys have to say about the new UI? I ran a poll on my channel yesterday to capture some of the initial response to the new in-game UI, and so far it has around 5,000 votes. Excluding the option to just see results, by far the two most common responses were love it and indifferent, with only 8% of the respondents saying they hated the new UI. So overall, the responses lie somewhere in the 7.5 to 8 out of 10 region, mostly pretty well liked. The visual design of the UI seems to be the most controversial aspect of it, as the theme has changed substantially and the UI design makes a huge impact on how the game looks and feels to play. For me, I probably land in the indifferent category on this specific issue. It's definitely simplified and smaller, covering less of the screen overall than the previous UI, which I do like. The team display sections and the top of the screen overall I think looks a lot better, with a bit more of the god displayed and a generally cleaner looking design. One thing I don't really like are the health and resource bars though. They look a bit cartoony for my liking and don't really fit in with the rest of the game. The whole UI in general is more minimalist and cartoony than before, but in terms of the actual game art itself, they just don't really fit. Especially the health bars on the team display just look like green and blue boxes you draw in MS Paint. This new UI does have a bit of an eerie feeling, like it doesn't really fit with Smite and was taken directly from another game with a different style. Of course it wasn't, it's custom, but compared to the previous UI that, while old and needing an update for sure, felt distinctly like Smite. I do feel like such a big change to the visuals on the UI might soften over time as people get used to it, and right now it just feels jarring because it's new, but overall I think it's just okay. There are some things I like about it and some things I don't. However, the main thing that was changed with this new UI is modularity. In the in-game HUD editor, almost every single element of the UI is now separated and can be moved and scaled to your liking. In the previous UI, it was mostly just lumped together and you could move the whole block or nothing at all. In this new system, everything can be configured individually, giving much more player freedom as to how you want to lay out the HUD in-game to suit your playstyle. Want your UI elements to be more prominent and easy to see at the cost of covering some more of your screen real estate? You can do that. Want your UI to be as unintrusive as possible so you can see that silhouette coming your way, but at the cost of being less available to see? You can do that too. I especially love that the entire bottom middle god section is separated. If you want to, you can switch the order of your mana and health bars or put them in completely different parts of the screen, though that's probably not optimal. You can put your skill cooldown somewhere completely different as well, so they're more easily readable at a glance. The KDA display has been moved from the bottom right to above your character frame, which I don't like personally, but guess what? You can just move that to literally anywhere you like. Hell, you can put it back where it was before if you want to. This kind of modularity in the UI is really great, and I will absolutely be spending an hour or two when the patch launches to perfect my HUD for visibility and intrusiveness. I think there's so much potential here, and it's especially useful for streamers and content creators, as it gives you more options for where you can put your webcam, sponsor banners, donation messages, etc., without them appearing over the top of some of your UI elements, making the viewer experience of Smite much more smooth. Now we just need a proper replay function, more spectate features, improved jungle practice, and all these other features that most modern games have to improve content creation. Get on that if you're listening, Hi-Rez. One thing that does irk me a bit with this new HUD editor though is the range of scale. It doesn't seem to be as wide as it was before. For example, I think the buff bar is too small in the new UI, as it's a really important part of the game to keep track of what's buffing and debuffing you and playing accordingly. Even at max scale, this is still smaller than the default on the previous UI, and I'd like to see a range that you can size things up to expanded a bit. This is compounded by what might be a bug, and that's that scale 10 to 40 are just the same. Nothing changes with the element going below 40. It doesn't get any smaller, which as I said is probably a bug and will hopefully be fixed, maybe alongside increasing the upper scaling limit from 120 to something like 150 or even 200. Most players won't use these extremes, but it's nice to have them there for specific use cases like the buff and debuff bar, which is far too small at the moment with no option to make it as big as I would like it to be. I also would personally like to be able to remove HUD elements. I know this might cause some confusion with new players if they accidentally delete a HUD element and don't know how to get it back or whatever, but some things I just really don't even need to see and would like to be able to remove them completely. This would especially help with content creation features, as you can essentially get a no UI, like, cinematic look to some of your clips by removing all the UI elements entirely. On that topic, some profiles would be nice as well, where I can save my default UI and then maybe save one that's smaller or for a different game mode or for streaming instead of just playing normally and stuff like that. Just these kind of small features would make the UI a little bit better. Also, a small thing, but they seem to have removed being able to drag the corner of the UI element to make it smaller or bigger. You can only use the scale arrows in the editor, which is really annoying to do and also restricts fine tuning since you can only go in 10s. And considering 40 is the actual minimum size at the moment, not 10, this leaves you with only 9 total sizes, which is solid, but again, I would like to see the upper end increased and allow players to set the size to, for example, 95 if they wanted to. But overall, I love the new modularity of the HUD and I will be spending a good amount of time perfecting it for both gameplay and content creation. I think this new UI will also unify the console and PC versions from what I've read, so that will be nice to keep things consistent across platforms. There's also a couple of nice new features with this UI in the tab screen that really improve the usability and make the game much more new player friendly, such as the current killstreak of players and their shutdown bonus being displayed directly on the tab screen. I always like it when games make these mechanics more obvious to players so they can learn more quickly without the need to look up guides outside the game just to figure out a mechanic as fundamental as shutdown bounties. The tab screen is now unified as well, with access to the T screen, ability list and death recaps as tabs on the same UI element. This definitely makes things easier to navigate, and of course you can still press T to get to the stats screen, K for abilities, etc, or your equivalent on console, but you can tab over to the other elements as needed, which is a nice change. All these screens have been overhauled visually as well, with especially the death recap looking much cleaner and providing a stat on how much damage was mitigated in that death, which is again really useful for introducing players to how protections actually impact the damage you take, as well as showing physical, magical and true damage and what percentage of that damage type was used to kill you. So now I can see Tablet of Destinies doing 50% of my HP and true damage on the death screen. Poggers. The relic cooldowns not showing for allies has been fixed as well, which is another nice thing to see. But what do you guys think about the new UI? Leave your own thoughts down below and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day and peace out, you nerds.